Okay, welcome to the Leadership Art Podcast. I'm your host, Art Robbins, and it's great to have you join us. The Leadership Art Podcast showcases everyday leadership in action. Each episode features insightful conversations with industry leaders who lead with purpose. Here you will discover practical insights, powerful lessons, and everyday inspiration to elevate your own impact. Whether you are leading now or preparing to step up, we want to inspire you to be the best leader you can be. And my guest today is Dr. Ewelina Kurtys. Ewelina is a scientist turned entrepreneur with a PhD in neuroscience, further specializing in technology commercialization, advising tech companies on sales, partnerships, and market strategy. She founded Akai Limited to support innovation and scale in science-driven companies, and she is currently a strategic advisor to FinalSpark, focused on building the next generation of biocomputers from living neurons. Ewelina, it's great to have you as a guest.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to our talk and having a very different kind of episode because as a layman, I have to admit, I know absolutely nothing about what we're going to talk about. So I know that myself and our audience are going to learn a lot. But, before we talk about your own leadership journey, let's set a context and actually describe what you're doing, because it's safe to say what you're focused on is truly innovative and new. Biocomputers from living neurons. And, for old science fiction buffs like myself, we think about futuristic stuff conceived by people like Isaac Asimov or Arthur C. Clarke, but this isn't fiction. This is really happening, right? So tell us, again, in layman's terms, what this is and why it's so important that we should be paying attention to it.
So FinalSpark is building computers from living neurons, the same neurons which we have in our heads. And we try to program them to process information. We can see by looking at our brains that neurons for sure can process information. But now we would like to use this also in the lab so that we can build a computer where a processor will be living neurons instead of a CPU or GPU, which we have today in our computers. And the main reason why we use living neurons is because they are 1 million times more energy efficient than digital hardware. And as we know, AI, which we have today, is not really scalable forever because the energy consumption is increasing exponentially. And today we can still manage this, but we can expect that in 10 years it can be a problem. So scientists are looking for many ways to optimize computation, but we think that really radical approach would be to use living neurons because they are 1 million times more energy efficient. So that would be huge reduction in energy consumption by artificial intelligence.
I mean, that's mind-boggling when you think 1 million times. I mean, it's hard to imagine what that would be. I mean, you're talking about energy consumption, not an increase in processing time. Is that correct? It's just the amount of energy that's being...
Yes, the energy which is needed for a specific task.
And I guess with AI coming up, everyone's talking about the need to build these massive data centers, and we won't have enough infrastructure to support the demand. Is this going to solve that problem?
Yes, definitely. So we will be very competitive to the digital hardware because we will be able to run artificial intelligence much, much cheaper as compared to the digital.
So can some of these artificial intelligence processes actually be run on much smaller devices, even handheld devices?
Actually, they don't have to be small. Actually, we imagine a central biocomputer, which will be able remotely. And we would like to build huge structures of neurons because neurons are very easy to scale. In vitro, in the lab, in the dish, you can multiply huge number of neurons. It doesn't cost that much. Currently, we are doing tests on very little blobs of cells, around 10,000 neurons each, or 0.5 millimeter diameter. However, this is just for testing. But in the future, we imagine huge structure of neurons, even 100 meters long. And the reason we want to do this remotely, like cloud computing, is because we believe that it gives us much more possibilities. So we can make it bigger and it will be easier to control because neurons are very fragile. So it's very important to keep a stable condition.
So we'll still see large data centers. It's just
Yes.
what's going on in those data centers is
Actually, yes, but they will be much more sustainable. Yes.
much more sustainable. I mean, it's still hard to conceive of when you think of living neurons in something mechanical like a computer. How does the average person sort of wrap their mind around that?
So actually, living tissue, living neurons are communicating using electrical charge, which is flowing through the neurons. This you can measure, and actually people do this for a very long time for some electrophysiology experiments. You can measure the electrical activity of the tissue. So this is actually nothing new. The new is that we want to use it for programming the cells. So what we do, we take the neurons, we produce them in our lab, and we put them on electrodes so that we can send them electrical stimulation. We can stimulate them with the spikes, and we can also read the spikes of neurons. So we have bidirectional communication between the neurons and our electrical hardware. And of course, everything is connected to the digital computer, so we can run experiments automatically. Experiment means that you design some kind of steps. For example, you want to stimulate cells a specific number of time, and then you measure the electrical signal coming from cells, and then you analyze this. So neurons can be connected to electrical hardware, and this is how the biocomputer begins.
You mentioned earlier that this is not anything new, except it's being now used in programming. What are some of the precedents that have sort of inspired this new process?
So actually, living neurons in the lab is nothing new because they're used a lot in biomedical research to understand how brain works and to figure out some new drugs, for example. So it's new to try to program neurons. So we use methods from biology, which are quite established, but we use them for different purpose. So we want to build a computer. So that's a new thing that not many people thought about. We have actually two competitors to the best of our knowledge. So it's a very new approach. And actually, why people work on this now is because the technology is advanced enough that it's possible to work on that. Because now we can get actually big number of neurons very easily without any sacrifice. We can get neurons from human skin by reprogramming cells of human skin. And also there is huge progress in artificial intelligence, which is also used for research and in some hardware. So this is why today such a project is possible.
Now, where are you in the life cycle of this project? I mean, what can we expect to see in terms of this actually being rolled out and used commercially?
So everything depends on how many people will work on this problem. We are a small team of 6 people and we are self-funded, so everything is quite slow. However, we are also talking to investors about 50 million Swiss francs of investment of the whole process for the next 10 years. And in this case, after accepting the investors, we can push our milestones a bit faster. The next milestone on which we are working currently is learning in vitro. So how to teach neurons? Neurons in our brains learn by rewiring, by changing the connections between each other. And we want to use this process also in our laboratory. We would like to be able to perform a very simple algorithm because today we can store just one bit of information. This is not a lot. But we would like to be able to run some algorithm, like, for example, some image recognition or maybe some sounds recognition, some very easy stuff, some easy classification, for example. That seems to be the easiest task for neural networks. And that's the next with investors would take us around 2-3 years, we estimate. And later, the next milestone will be advanced learning. So we would like to match the performance with the digital computation. And the next step will be scaling. So we want to build our huge bioservers, and all this will take us around 10 years. But we envision that will be very profitable because it will be very competitive compared to digital hardware. Because currently the biggest cost in digital hardware is energy. So if we can have hardware which is 1 million times more energy efficient, we will be huge competition. We predict that we can have billions of profit, but in more than 10 years.
So we're really looking at the 2030s
Yes, absolutely.
to start to see the
2033,
commercial impact of it.
36. Yes, these are the times when we expect to have a big profit. Yes.
Yeah. And is this going to require a whole new form of programming? Is it going to change the way that systems are developed, or is it more like upgrading your house from conventional electricity to solar panels and you pretty much do the same things inside the house as an end user?
No, actually, this is one of the biggest difficulty because you need totally new framework. You need totally new approach for programming. And this is actually the same problem which we can see in quantum computing. Because every time we have totally new hardware, we have to approach also programming in totally different way. So that's one of the reasons why biocomputing is so difficult. Because everything works differently. Also, neurons process information in time and space, so they don't use a 0-1 system as computers. So that's a big challenge. Totally new way of programming.
I think that's a good bridge to the leadership side of this episode. It's like, how do you do that? How do you convince people that this is the way to go, or they should get on the bus early and start to collaborate with you? Because there's a lot of people out there, they say they're into innovation, but they're also very risk averse, especially if they're an investor or a major technology partner. So you're leading the charge here, right? You're leading the commercialization efforts of a very, very innovative leading edge company. What are some of the challenges and things you have to do to get buy-in?
Well, actually, we are also very risk averse. So every decision we make, we take very carefully. We are very careful in everything we do to avoid some huge mistakes. But yes, you are right. It is a big challenge for investors. For example, when we talk with investors, because of long timeline, so it's not an investment for everyone. Most investors would like after 3 to 5 years. So this is a higher risk, definitely. But when it comes to people, sometimes we have already first clients actually, because our laboratory is available remotely. So you can actually perform experiments from any place in the world by just connecting to the website through the internet browser, and you can run experiments from web application. So many people are fascinated because it's a new topic. It's very cool. It's something they haven't seen before. So many scientists, actually engineers, are interested. And some companies also who work with us are fascinated by this new possibility. But for investors, indeed, it's cautious because it's long-term project. So of course, it is higher risk than many technologies which we build with digital computers.
I mean, you really have to do a good job of screening for those right investors that do have that longer term horizon. Maybe investors that are more comfortable, let's say, with the pharmaceutical industry than the social app industry, right?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, many people come to us also to ask for investments. And many people, not only professional, but also just private people. We get hundreds of messages via our website. There is a form for investments, and also private people are interested, although we have not yet opened this opportunity because we have discovered it's quite complicated and not every country can participate. But many private people are fascinated by the project and interested in how to invest.
What about corporate groups or academic groups? Are those constituents that you've attempted to reach out to? And what are some of the unique challenges there?
Yes, actually, we reach out to some universities to propose them a collaboration. We received 34 proposals and we selected 9. So we have 9 universities which had free access to our laboratory and which could run some experiments. Some people are skeptical, but then they don't work with us. But we get a lot of research teams which are very fascinated with the possibility to work with living neurons. And then from big companies, some large companies reach out to us as well. And this can be, for example, R&D department when they want to screen or monitor what is on the edge of technology, or maybe to figure out what will be available in 10 years, because when they want to look ahead, they want to see today already what is being in preparation. So yes, and then, well, the challenge is always the same, that it's early stage. So for example, if someone gets access to our laboratory, this is mainly for research purpose. You cannot compute anything. You cannot run ChatGPT on this yet, but it's rather for fundamental research. So for some people it's not enough, but for some people it's enough to get excited and do something.
What do you feel are the key triggers or the key connections you have to make to convince people to proceed?
Well, I think what is always important is the clarity. So people have to understand what you have. And even if it's some totally new technology, it's complicated, you need to make sure that they understand exactly what you have in the lab, that it doesn't look obscure, high level. It has to be technical. And the technical people need to feel comfortable with your technology. Otherwise, it is not going to work. And we are very transparent. We actually work now to make it easier for our users. We work on documentation because at the beginning it was a bit difficult because everything was more in a spoken language. But now we try to make this systematic, the knowledge about neuro platform, how to work with neurons. For example, if someone wants to try to program them, there are some rules to follow. So we try to make sure that people have access to this. So yeah, I think it has to be clear on what you have to offer.
I think transparency is a great lesson regardless of what industry you're in. That's that's
Absolutely.
definitely a winning
Yeah.
formula.
Yeah, because we are also industry agnostic. We aim for general computing device. So any type of industry can be interested. Any R&D team can be interested in the work which we do. So we don't have specific industry target at the moment, at least.
Mhm. The other aspect when I think about the leadership challenges here is also internally. How do you encourage innovation? How do you get people to be creative and exploratory and willing to take risks? Sometimes you hear the old story where they have a bunch of scientists in the room and lead scientist walks in and says, I need more ideas. I need more ideas. I'm sure it's not as simple as that. But seriously, I mean, how do you encourage that and foster that kind of innovation?
Well, I think it's leading by example. So the company was founded by two entrepreneurs who are quite brave in the innovation, Fred Jordan and Martin Kuter. They have already done one successful company previously, which is also very innovative, although it's very practical technology, digital, so it's not so crazy like this one. And I think it's always you lead by example because you have to be curious and full of ideas yourself. Then there is a chance that other people who have ideas will be willing to work with you. We are also very careful, even if we are taking an intern for a few months, we are very careful in selection and we search for this, for curiosity and for also creativity. We like people who are enthusiastic and full of energy.
How do you encourage people to fail and to accept failure? Because I guess that's part of this whole process, right? You have to be willing to do some things that inevitably not everything you try is going to work.
Well, I think it's a normal thing in science that failure, but also in business development, I would say. It's also quite experimental. So I think it's important to have atmosphere that you know that even if you fail, it's not going to be disaster internally and you just keep going and you do your stuff. You do your best as much as you can. So it's normal that not everything is working always. And yeah, it's just important to keep calm because when there is too much stress, then of course people are freezing and then there is no innovation.
No, that's true. Now, I was going to say that maybe a lot of scientists recognize this, that failure is part of the process, but
Yes.
if you can learn from it and move
Oh,
on,
yes.
there's actually a success in that failure. So you come out of that step smarter and more focused on what to do next.
Yes, absolutely. So I think it's always step by step. We've done a lot of experiments. We are still running a lot, also making mistakes, and we're becoming experts in the field by doing this.
Yeah. So let me ask you more to a personal level. How did you get involved in this area? Why are you personally excited about it?
So I've done a PhD in neuroscience. I was always fascinated with the human brain. And I enjoy a lot of research, but I was also curious what is outside of academia. So I left after some time in research and I started to work with startups. And this is how I discovered artificial intelligence because at the university I didn't use it. I had always very small data samples, so was no need for automation in the analysis. But when I was working with startups, I discovered AI, how many possibilities it has. And I started to study this and I even started to learn coding a little bit, but I'm not a born engineer. I love commercial work much more. But still, I was fascinated with this and I've been working for some time on commercial applications of AI. And after I started to work on future of AI, which is biocomputing. And I actually was lucky to meet the founders of FinalSpark in London. I was living in London at that time and I was at the conference. It was AI Summit. It was really great because that was really eye-opening conference. I've learned a lot about AI. And they also showed the FinalSpark there. And I thought it's perfect project for me because it's combination of neuroscience, what I know from research, and AI, what I'm interested in now. So I proposed them collaboration, and this is how we work now.
Well, that's great. And you certainly got into one of the more, if not most, innovative sectors of AI. And There's so much debate about what AI is going to do with the world. And is it going to replace jobs? Is it going to replace humans? And the prevailing mindset that I'm seeing is there has to be some sort of hybrid of human and machine operation working together to make each other better. But having said that, a lot of people don't know what that means. They don't know what the right balance is. And I'm wondering if you have any perspectives or opinions about, well, first of all, is the hybrid model the right model in the future? And what is the balance we should be aspiring to? And how do you achieve it?
I am not sure we will be aiming for a balance because the numbers will always win. So if it's cheaper to use AI, then hire a person and easier, then I'm sure that people will do this. So I think that it's difficult to predict what will happen. I'm sure a lot of jobs will change, a lot of jobs will disappear, but it's a normal thing because every time when technology is changing, then we have new jobs and all the jobs disappear. And I think with AI, it's really maybe different because there's a lot of intellectual jobs, which we were hoping are only for humans. And now we see it's not the case, that actually cleaning and cooking is still the best job for human, but intellectual work, art and science, it seems to be that AI one day can win with us on that. So I think it's very challenging and it's hard to predict the future. So I think that for us, the only thing what we can do is to be open-minded and willing to learn. I think this is the last thing which is which is saving us, that we are willing to learn. Because anyway, I think it's normal that maybe during a life course you change jobs, you don't stay in the same profession
Right, right.
the whole career. And so the ability to learn is important and to be open minded, because it can be that in 10 years everything will look different. And I personally think that a lot of things will be replaced by AI because I see how easy it is. Because even I use myself ChatGPT and I see how easy it is to ask AI instead of asking a human to do some task. With AI is much easier to manage, and will always listen to you. And it is really tempting. And of course, it's much cheaper. And there is no doubt that AI will be used a lot. So I'm not sure if there will be hybrid approach. I don't know. I think there is a lot of, we still need a human for a bigger picture. Hopefully, we still be needed, but who knows? Because AI is getting better and better. It's hard to say what will be in the future.
I definitely agree with the point. It's hard to say what will be the future, but like when I think about a hybrid approach, I mean, there are things that humans can do. I mean, there's the whole aspect of humanity. And can AI get smart enough where it could take over our humanity? Or can it do more of the analytic work and give us information where we can spend more time doing things that humans can truly do better? You know, applying humanity and relationships and empathy to a process to make it come out better. Maybe that's very aspirational, but I'd like to think if jobs go away or change, it's directing humans to do better. And AI is a tool that's helping them achieve that in ways they never could before.
No, of course, for sure. But a lot also depends on what engineers will do, because actually, how AI will change the job market will depend on the true capacity of AI. So, for example, if it's still hallucinating, then okay, human win. That's good. But maybe one day it will become better and better, and then it can replace many jobs. So yes, we will see. I'm also curious to see.
Yes, I think you'll both be seeing and influencing how it happens.
Yes.
Because if the cost of computing drops exponentially, like, aspiring to, I imagine we'll see an acceleration in the use of AI.
Oh yes, definitely. I
Yeah.
think it will be much more accessible.
Who are some of the role models that have influenced you in your journey?
Oh my goodness. I think when I started entrepreneurship, when I started working in startups, then I started to look around on other people, because as a scientist, I was actually more focused on the laboratory work. I don't think I was following someone. Maybe I was collaborating with a great scientist, but when I started to work with startups, I read a book of Felix Dennis, which was a British entrepreneur. He was actually in publishing industry and he wrote a very honest book about entrepreneurship, which was really amazing guide and
Do you remember the
amazing
name of
inspiration.
it?
Hmm?
Do you remember the name of the book?
Felix Dennis. Actually, the title is How to Get Rich, but actually the book is really great because it's autobiography of this guy. Very honest and very straightforward, very pragmatic. You know, his approach to life and everything. And actually, that was really great discovery for me because for a long time, I was thinking that I'm sometimes exaggerating, maybe in my thinking. But then I read his book and I realized that actually this is the way how I think as well. So I thought, okay, maybe it's not so bad. If it's not a great person,
What was like
there's a lot of
the one key takeaway from that book
which I agree.
you can share with the audience?
Oh, one key. So today we talk about biocomputers. So that's the most important topic I wanted to discuss. So, well, I think it's good to be curious about the future technologies because they will have a great impact on our life. And I think it's very important not to be afraid because I still see sometimes many people are scared of new technologies. I think we cannot stop the progress. So it's better to take advantage of it and try to learn it and be the early adopter because I think such approach is always winning. So I think it's good to be enthusiastic because we have no choice. I mean, we cannot stop the progress. So it's better to work with the new technologies and get familiar with them.
That's a great lesson. I think it keeps us fresh and on top of the latest developments. That's a great takeaway. Evelina, we're running out of time here, but can you just take a minute and tell people how they can follow you and stay in touch? I'm sure the audience would love to keep abreast of your journey and the future developments as they come out. What's the best way to connect with you?
So I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so it's good way to follow me. And if someone is interested in FinalSpark, then definitely a good place to go is finalspark.com. This is our website, and there are a lot of resources on the website and also a lot of links. We have Discord community, which is also very technical for scientists, for people who are fascinated with our platform, with computation on the living neurons. And also it's possible to send us a message. You can fill in the form on the website or you can send us email directly because actually on the website, on the team section, there are all pictures of all our team and also email addresses of everyone. So yes, I encourage everyone who is interested to get in touch and to follow us.
Well, that's great. I would encourage them too. And, with that, I think we should bring the episode to a close. So, Evelina, thank you again so much for being
Thank
our
you too.
guest today. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation. It gave me a lot to think about, and I realized I got a lot of work to do to stay on top of all this stuff. So, thank you again.
Thank you too.
Yeah. And also, I want to thank our listeners and followers for joining us and for your continued support. So, until the next episode of the Leadership Art Podcast, this is your host, Art Robbins. And remember, it's your lead.